Okay. Ready? Okay, I'm calling to order the May 14th, 2025 meeting of the City of Walker Zoning Board of Appeals at 6:35. By way of introduction, I'll briefly explain the purpose of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The City of Walker has adopted the zoning ordinance. If a property owner wishes relief from a portion of that ordinance, the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act provides an avenue of appeal through the Zoning Board of Appeals. The zoning ordinance provides 4 conditions that the board must use in making a decision. The board may grant a variance only if they find reasonable evidence that all 4 conditions are met. The 4 conditions that must be met are extraordinary or exceptional circumstances which apply to this parcel and do not apply generally to other properties in this district. Preservation and enjoyment of the property of rights that other properties in this district or vicinity possess. The variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent properties. And 4, the request is not of such general nature that an ordinance should be changed. A decision by the Zoning Board of Appeals cannot be overturned by the City Commission. The Zoning Enabling Act states that the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals shall be final. A party aggrieved by the decision may appeal to the Circuit Court of the county of which the property is located. An appeal to the Circuit Court must be filed within 30 days of the decision. Okay, first thing on the agenda, we have, we need to approve our minutes from last time, and any discussion, any changes, any?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Jeff, second by Randy. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. All opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If there's anyone that has anything to say that's not related to this, that you want to say, talk about for 5 minutes, now is your opportunity to do it. Okay, seeing none, move on. The one item of business on the agenda is case 25-001 for 1331 Pannell Street Northwest. This is a dimensional variance request seeking relief from section 6.10, mining, processing, and material storage. This case is returning after being tabled at the April 9th meeting. And so I need a motion to untable that.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Jeff, second by Randy. All in favor of untabling?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's back on the roster here. So, okay, we'll start out with Paula giving us kind of an overview of kind of where we are, what was discussed, and any changes that she's incurred since our last meeting. And then, we'll have the applicant speak if he wishes to do that. I know you've already done it, but and then anyone in the audience that wants to speak that has not spoken. I know several of you have, so if there's others that want to, you can, but we have that on record, so we're not going to go through all that again. So anyone who has not spoken last time is going to be able to do that. So I guess that is, after that, we'll have a discussion on the panel and decide based on what we hear and whatnot and make a decision tonight. So, and we do have a full board, so thank goodness for that. So we'll get this wrapped up today. So with that, Paula, would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will do a very high-level review of the case for those who weren't able to be here last time, and then focus on the new information. So we're talking about 1331 Pannell. The property is currently zoned I-2 General Industrial and SA Suburban Residential Single Family. It's about a 12-acre site, and they're requesting a variance in order to use the site as a mineral mine in order to prepare the site for future industrial development. So here is where we are oriented. Alpine is to the east and Bristol to the west. We're just north of Pannell Avenue here. I went through these definitions in detail last time. The definitions are here for mineral mining from the zoning ordinance, as well as mineral processing and storage. And there's also definitions in the mineral mining ordinance. This is the section of the ordinance the variance is being requested from, section 6.10, mineral processing and storage. The things at point of contention here are that the minimum lot size is 20 acres for a mineral processing and storage site, and the setbacks from residential are 500 feet. This site is between 517 and 640 feet from north to south. So if we're buffering with that 500-foot setback from residential, there's nowhere on the site that is left. The entire site is covered. So they're requesting a variance. The variance is needed in order to do the mining activity on this site. If the variance is, I'm jumping ahead of myself, apologies. So the mineral mining ordinance is relevant to the case. However, it is not a point that this board will decide on. If the variance is granted, the applicant will then go to the city's mineral mining review board in order to have their mining application reviewed and be granted a mining license. And that technical board will review the mining plans according to the mining ordinance. There's those setbacks that I mentioned again. The applicant is requesting a 75-foot setback from residential use. So on the north side, you can see the red line, that's about 75 feet. So they're requesting to be able to mine the material up to that line. On the east side, that's another industrial use, so the setback is 50 feet. And to the other sides, there's the road, and on the east, there is a power line corridor.
Hey, Paul, before you move on from that,
Yes.
that northern third or so of the property is not zoned industrial right now?
That is correct. It is currently zoned SA. That's one of our single-family residential districts.
Thank you.
You know how far back that blue line on the top is from residential homes?
No, so we're talking about it, the ordinance says from residential use or district. So in this case, I showed the different lines here from residential use, that is the northern property line, because the property immediately across that line is in residential use. The orange line here shows a 500-foot setback from residential district, which would account for the dual zoned portion of this site with the residential zoning, and then you can see the 500 feet takes you beyond the south property line. So it encompasses the entire property if those 500-foot setbacks are applied. This is what the site looks like with the contours according to the 2024 site plan review application that was sent in. So you can see the contour lines. That shows where there are steep grades, and there are multiple of them on the site. There's the hill existing here. There's a grade dropped off to the property on the east, and then there is kind of a bit of a hill here in the southeast corner of the site. These are older contours, but they're applied on an aerial, so you can get an idea of where the layout is as of 2023. So the ZBA is considering the variance request. Again, the Technical Mineral Mining Review Board will review the mining details, safety of mining operations, adherence to the standards of the mining ordinance, fencing and buffering, those sorts of things. This board is asked to consider the variance request. So that is, the request is to permit a mineral mine / mineral processing and material storage operation of 12 acres in size when the minimum lot size in the ordinance is 20 acres. That's a reduction of 8 acres. And to permit a mineral mine, mineral processing and material storage operation with front and rear setbacks from a residential use of 75 feet when the minimum setbacks from a residential use or residential district is 500 feet. So those are the variances being requested that the board is being asked to decide upon at this time.
Paul, on an early slide you had of the setbacks,
Yes.
also had a 60% requirement. Well, I didn't understand what that meant.
I'm
The
sorry.
table you had in there, it had 500 feet, yeah, lot coverage 60%. You know what that means?
That's the amount of land on the property that can be used for that particular use. So there would have to be some open space. Some of that ends up in setbacks, some of that ends up in other areas where you can't, you think of it as often, and a clearer example is with a building. The building components can't comprise more than, if it's 60%, all the other uses make up the rest, the remainder. So like in this case, you couldn't have mineral processing and material storage taking up more than 60% of the site. So that would be in piles of material, and if there's sifting equipment, that sort of thing, can't encompass more than 60% of the total lot area.
Okay, yeah, I understand now, thank you.
All right. So the chair in his introduction went through the standards. Just for the room again, there are 4 standards. The ordinance requires that the Zoning Board of Appeals must find from reasonable evidence that all of the 4 conditions are met in order to grant a variance. They are that there is an exceptional or extraordinary circumstance or condition applying to this property that do not apply in general to other properties in the same zoning district, that the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district or vicinity. The possibility for financial return shall not of itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. Authorizing such a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the intent and purposes of this chapter or the public interest. This chapter there refers to the zoning ordinance in whole, and that the condition or situation of the property or the intended use is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make it that we should amend the ordinance rather than grant a variance. So those are the standards. I have a few other things in here. This is a slide from the mineral mining plan the applicant has presented. And again, the path forward. If the variance is granted, the applicant must then go to the Mineral Mining Review Board and receive a mining license. Then they would do the mining activity, and after the mining activity takes place and they get to the final reclamation grade after material is removed, then around that time they would go to the Planning Commission for site plan approval. So any future building on this site after mining activity would also need approvals. And if they wanted to continue with the initial ask of rezoning the northern portion of the site, that would go to the Planning Commission for a review and recommendation, and then that component would go to the City Commission. So there are a number of steps and other boards that would still be involved in this case if the variance is granted. Then, in summary, so we went through all of this in great detail at the April 9th meeting. The applicant also presented, and the public hearing was opened and closed. That time, the board went into fact-finding, talked through all of the different standards. A motion of approval was made and supported. That motion failed in a 3-2 vote because at the Zoning Board of Appeals, you need 4 members voting to approve or deny a motion. So that previous motion failed. A second motion was made to table the case. Now we're back here today. The case has been taken off the table. The new information from the previous meeting come from the applicant. I'll let them speak to it in more detail, but they provided a memo and some imagery regarding the efforts that they are taking to ensure that they're minimizing or eliminating as much as possible any detriment to neighbors, because that was a major component of discussion at the April meeting. So I'm happy to bring up any other slides or images that I have, answer any questions from the board, but that's really all that I had for you today.
Did we get any additional comments from letters or emails, faxes, anything like that?
Yes, we got a lot of public comment, but from the time of the April meeting till now, 13 public comments, in fact. 10 of them are in the packet.
Okay.
The ones that had been received when the packet went out were in there initially. It got updated today at 3 p.m. to include the other public comments that had been received at that time, and 3 more came in since then. I have those printed for the board to review in full. The ones that came in, the ones that came in later today, so
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
pass those out for the board members so they have them in full. And if the board chooses to take additional public comment tonight, I'm happy to summarize for you the content of the public comments that were received by staff, almost exclusively via email.
Okay.
Do you know where to and from that railroad track goes that sits on the property?
I didn't look it up exactly. It goes, in this side, it goes east-west, so it runs north through the industrial area, north of the highway and out west into Talmadge Township. And in the east, it joins other railroads in Grand Rapids, but I'm not sure once it goes from there.
We know we had to keep it though, right? Because that's why the whole Bristol Bridge project was such a big deal.
Yes.
Because the railroad
Yeah.
insisted we keep the darn railroad.
So it's still functional?
It is a functional railroad. The applicant can probably speak to it more, but I believe their plans have them removing the spur, the rail spur that goes onto their property. If they move forward, that would be removed.
Okay. All right, thank you, Paula. Okay, would the applicant like to address the board?
So, hello, my name is Chad Mancarelli. I'm working with the Cortezes on this project. They are present here in the room. I just wanted to go through very quickly kind of some of the additional information that we provided
you.
Paula in our memo, which was included in your packet. Obviously, the big issue here is kind of the detriment to the adjacent properties and how we'd be mitigating those issues. We put a number of items within this this memo that would be kind of our efforts to do so. Many of these items are reviewed by the Mineral Mining Board, another public meeting that we have to go to get kind of approval for this project. So and again, as Paula said, it's been kind of a long road for us. We started this project originally with a rezoning effort to make the whole project industrial, and I think we had one person in the room at that time, you know, other than us. So from there, site plan approval based on the amount of material taken out pushed us into a mining pushed us here today. So so yeah, that's just kind of the broad story of how we got here, and that process started almost a year ago. But to get into that third item a little bit that Paula brought up, the other three items were seemingly agreed, I believe unanimously, by the board members present at the last meeting. But the third item was one that we were requested to provide additional information to. So I want to kind of go into kind of 4 or 5 main items here. Kind of the first being the drainage item that came up at the last meeting. This project, so one of the reasons why we're here is the future industrial development required a detention pond that was over the 5,000 yards. Now I recognize there's a lot more material shown coming out of there. But in and of itself, to even construct the detention pond needed for the industrial development was over 5,000 yards, which would have kicked us into here. You can kind of see from the site that there's really not a lot of places to store material once we excavated that basin, so that material would have to go off-site. So the drainage design for this site, or the detention pond and the drainage plan presented during the site plan process was designed in accordance with the City of Walker standards. So those standards are obviously designed to limit impacts to adjacent property owners. And the drainage aspect, you know, the detention pond would be constructed as part of the initial phases of the excavation. So it would be technically oversized for really what would be happening on this site for the first duration, which would be the material removal and excavation. The next item was buffer and landscaping. We proposed as part of our initial mining plan to the mining board actually a dual buffering system which exceeded that standard. You either need a fence or a row of coniferous trees. We have both on this site. So we feel that that will help mitigate some of the sound concerns that may be coming from this, that may or may not be coming from the site. I will say too, the City of Walker mining ordinance has a decibel level that we have to control the site to, sound decibel level that we have to control the site to 50 feet away from the property line. So that item, again, is gonna be reviewed at another public meeting. So, and that decibel requirement's obviously designed to protect adjacent property owners. But we feel the buffer and the landscaping will also help do that. So other noise reduction strategies, kind of typical to kind of big projects like this, would be, implementing operational controls. The owner has indicated that they will implement some operational controls, limiting work hours if necessary, to help kind of, ease the burden on the adjacent property owners. And again, this is purely to prepare the site for a future industrial development, which, the whole parcel is zoned industrial in the master plan. So, yeah, it will be eventually,
Is that true,
developed
Paul?
on that.
If you give me just a moment here, this is an excerpt from the city's master plan, future land use community character map, and the entire property is designated community enterprise, which correlates with light industrial.
May I ask a question? I've been on that site, and it seemed to me that there was an awful lot of empty space there that might easily fit, a decent-sized warehouse. Okay, did you hear me?
I heard you, yes.
Why do you have to excavate 300,000 cubic yards of material?
So I think one of the reasons why, so we are limited actually on that site because we have a large consumer's energy easement that comes through there as well. So that's on the west side of the site. So we can't put material into that. We can't build in that. That easement encumbers the property. I think the vision from the owner was that excavation and bringing down the surface grade of this site would actually lower the industrial buildings so that you wouldn't have a big building sticking up in people's backyards as well. So, but again, regardless of lowering how much it gets lowered, which the Mineral Mining Board can limit that as well, how much it gets lowered, the detention pond still required for the proposed building is still over the amount that we would have to get a mineral mining permit. So.
Well, the thing that I'm sort of stuck on, to be honest, is the 300,000 cubic yards over an indefinite period of time, which we talked about a little bit last time, depending on the market for the sand, right? Now, and I know economics does not play a part in our decision, but how much sand are you thinking of potentially selling?
I'm gonna have to let the owner answer that when he comes up here. So, he can answer that. I'm not RBC Corp, so I'm not involved in their business relations and what they're selling and what they're not selling.
Okay.
So, respectfully.
Okay, I
So-
appreciate it.
Yep. So again, kind of continuing on with the the memo that we provided Paula, other noise and vibration reduction strategies include, making sure your equipment's maintained, so you're limiting the squeaking, rattling, grinding, all that kind of stuff. So, again, the owner is committed to doing that. Again, that's another item that the Mineral Mining Board would have kind of jurisdiction over to control. Dust control, which we know is another concern. There are, again, items within that mineral mining approval, that require us to do certain things. One of them is installing paved entrances into the site to limit off-site dust. Other items that, we have to do or will be doing, or they will be doing, I should say, is minimizing the site disturbance to active phases, working to continually restore sloped excavated areas, restricting in-site haul routes to areas designated as such, and then applying dust suppression measures, water basically, to haul routes, paved areas, and other highly trafficked portions of the site as needed. So that's just kind of my brief covering of the memo. Obviously, we provided that to the board for their review. I did provide some additional photos as well that just kind of shows the existing conditions on site, kind of some of those steeper slopes, the man-made, soil piles that were there that are growing trees and whatnot on them. So we provided all that for the board consideration. So I think at this time I can turn it over to anyone from RBC if they were to choose to speak, but that's all I have. So.
It's good. We've got quite a bit of
Could,
information
I
for
need
you.
your name and address, please.
Ron Cordes, Cordes Trenching,
Okay.
RBC Development, Bobby Burrell,
Cordes Trenching.
Cordes Trenching also.
We do, yeah, we have a lot of information, and so we can try to keep it because we have already covered quite a few of the topics last time. I know we have new people in the audience that are in attendance for the first time, and I know we have a couple of new board members, so I want to make sure that we answer all the questions and kind of give the overview. So,
Can you hear her?
Yeah.
can you hear me? No?
If I have a question,
She thought I spoke quiet.
I have a question,
Yes.
or rather a comment. But I was reviewing the minutes from April 9.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to hear you guys, so if you could just speak into the
Oh, I'm
microphone would
sorry.
be really helpful. But thank you, I appreciate that.
It's set as an area mic, so just do your best.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're
You
fine.
can just try to direct me.
If you speak closely to it,
Yeah.
maybe not that close, but
All right,
you know what
well,
I mean.
let's see. So,
is the red light on? I don't think it is.
it's got a green light. What happened?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't
No,
know.
you're fine.
Okay. That sounds better. There we go. So, thank you. We're picking back up on this dimensional variance issue. And so I know a few of you were not here. I know we have a lot of people in the audience who are not here and are just kind of stepping in or may have attended, may not have attended, may have read the minutes and are just kind of getting into this. So, last time there weren't especially any concerns about the three of the topics. But if you have any questions, it's in the information that's provided. But if you have any questions, let us know. Primarily, we're going to just focus on the area of concern, which is that neighborhood element, and just making sure that we're meeting that tenant. So I feel like I'm talking so loud. Okay. Also, since there has been a few details, a few things of misinformation, misconceptions about the project. So I'm gonna just go back from the beginning and just clarify a few things. So RBC Development owns the property, okay? It is a privately held company. There are no investors in this property, and there are no foreign entities involved. The company is operated by Cordes Trenching 1, and there's been information circulated that it's been operated by Cordes Trucking, and that is an entirely unrelated entity. So it's Cordes Trenching 1. There are no affiliations with that other company. We are a small family business. When I say small, I mean small. This is not a large company. We're talking about 12 people, some of which are family members, some of which are employees like family, been with us on average 21 years or more. So we have had the same employees for quite a bit of time, and I think that says a little bit about who we are. We are a local company, we operate in Kent County, we own in Kent County, and that's all we really do. So we have diverse experience in utility infrastructure and other components of construction. We own and operate one similar industrial site locally and have never had an issue with any of the residential neighbors. No concerns have been brought up. Prior to our purchasing the property in 2015, which we purchased with the intention of developing for an industrial purpose, the site was a sand mine at one point. Geographically, it explains the unusual, challenging grading issues. And I just don't think that unless you've been out to the site, you can really see on those photos just what kind of weird, unusual situation the grading is. There have been, since the 60s at least, there has been just a lot of weird grading activity. I think honestly most of it took place in the 60s or before. It's all a historical situation. The elevation maps really show kind of the history staying consistent with this unusual man-made shape. So it was operated since the 60s to like the early 2010s by St. Mary's Cement, and they were a large commercial cement manufacturer. They brought in the ready mix by rail. It was then mixed into concrete and loaded onto cement tankers. And so that's what was done from the 60s to like around 2010. They sold the property in about 2015, or in 2015. So that rail line, and I wanted to touch on that too, that is the Grand Trunk rail line. It's also Coopersville-Marne Railroad. It is an active line. Coopersville and Marne Railroad is primarily like a touristy kind of like passenger rail rather than like a heavy freight rail, but the other line on it is a freight rail. So it is in operation with, you know, heavy rail lines. It goes through there. I'm not sure how frequently, but it is an active rail line. So if you have any questions on that, we do have an easement with them, so we are authorized to use that drive. We did remove the spur. There was a spur on there for many years. Oh, is it partially removed? It's partially removed. They do still use it. So, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Part of it was removed to the sections of the east of the property, but the part on the west is still being used. Since we purchased the property, we've steadily improved, made small improvements. There were some massive tanks out there. We removed those in 2019 and early 2020, 2019, 2020. Those were just a really big safety concern. We had a lot of people vandalizing and climbing up on them, and we were very concerned that something honestly tragic would happen. So we removed those, and there was a small plant building. It was a 20 by 35 block structure that was there, and we removed that to help improve the site and make it more safe. Just because of the climbing and the vandalism, it was just not a good situation. We had a lot of police interaction and stuff out there. Since 2024, we've been working with the city in a lot of different ways to try to get to this point where we could build a building on this industrial property. So the best course of action was determined. We were going to come see the ZBA January of 2024. It was then determined that instead of doing that, we would look into trying to do rezoning. City of Walker suggested that. So we did the rezoning, then we went to, we went to so many different places. The industrial site review plan, in September we had something. They suggested we do the mineral mining board. We did that in January. They were very, they thought that what we were proposing, which is essentially small scale, it is a small property. There is it's a very scaled back version, but it is more than the 5,000 yards because inherently you can't even build a retention pond on that property without it being beyond that threshold. So this is a small scale is what we're proposing, which means less equipment, less disturbance, all of that type of thing. They said that we should come to you. So we're back to here, second time around, and So that's just kind of a history of the property for those who don't know kind of what the situation is out there. I know, it seems like some people think that we created this landscape, but this landscape has been existing for a long period of time. Then it was further complicated when this historically zoned industrial site had a dual zoning layer added on it in recent years. Historically, it was not zoned that. So then you take a site that is smallish, right? It's irregular shaped. There are 2 easements. It's zoned industrial. We have residential neighbors. You have setbacks from all sides, and you can't really build much of anything on it without some kind of.
Why can't you build something on it the way it is right now? There was a cement plant there. There was a concrete making plant there, correct?
Yes, there was.
Where was it?
Okay, so when that was there, the zoning wasn't changed, the residential zoning wasn't changed.
It was,
So it was fully,
yeah, and the building was
Commercial.
very.
So they had the concrete plant up on that hill there? Is that what you're telling me?
No, but they
It's right near
changed-
the rail. Like,
the rail went through it,
And that's industrial,
pardon?
right? So the flat area in the middle of the property is where the plant was, I assume. Is that right or
It was
not?
built in the 60s, and since then, the zoning has changed quite a
changed.
bit. There's setbacks now that
They weren't
basically
there before.
make it so you can't do that. The building itself, which is there was only one building.
You could do that if you got approval to do it that way. Instead, you're gonna take out a whole bunch of cubic feet of dirt
Or we
to do
could
it.
put a whole bunch of dirt in and raise up the elevation, but unfortunately, that would make it, I honestly think that would make it less appealing.
What I'm asking is, this property was developed, as you said, as a concrete plant in the 60s. They didn't need to take all the hills away to do that. Why do we need to do it now? That's my fundamental question.
They did
We want to
move
lower
that
the
dirt.
elevation to the neighbors to the west, to the east. Keep the same elevation.
Then it's not visible from
I
Pannell.
understand what you want to do, but why can't you put a industrial facility on that right now as it is, on top of
We'd
where
have
the
to
old
fill it in
concrete
to
plant
do it
was?
The way we want to
We'd
do
have
it.
to bring in fill, lots of fill, like lots of
Like
fill.
more fill than we're taking.
Spoils from various
To
sites.
get it the right elevation to put a building in.
We're
Therefore,
not just saying that.
It would-
I don't understand, I just don't understand. Why did the concrete plant not need to be elevated dramatically to function
we're talking
properly? I
about
just don't get
buildings
it.
twice, 3 times bigger than what the concrete plant
No,
was.
it was like a 20 by 35 block building.
That was
like,
it,
you know.
with some silos
Okay,
and a spur.
There's
okay.
It's not practical
were-
to put an industrial building there now because there's
Yeah.
not enough.
Nor can you, because the property was sold where you cannot put, they didn't sell the property without like a non-compete. You can't put a concrete plant or anything like that there.
Well, yeah, I don't want a concrete plant there. I'm just asking why you couldn't put
I
something
was
in
gonna
light
say, it
industrial
actually
there.
sounds kinda, I mean, I've heard that it was not a great thing for the neighbors.
Do you know when the the residential zoning was changed?
I do not. I was just trying to pull it up, but I can't from this computer.
I believe it was 2015.
I find it hard to believe that was done recently.
Oh, residential?
I would be very surprised if that was done recently.
Oh, no, it's.
Actually, I think I know there's somebody in the audience that could probably answer that question if I could ask them.
What, did anyone know?
Do you know when that zoning was changed?
2015?
I want to say it was changed around the 2015, 2016.
I am almost positive, because I have communication from the city of Walker in 2014.
Well, all
saying-
right, well, 2 things. One, it'd be nice to see that for sure. And 2, it's really not relevant because it was changed 10 years ago.
Yeah,
He was, Owen would know.
okay. It would be 2015, I believe, I'm pretty sure. Was it 2015? It was 2015.
My name's Owen Marsman Construction, 1201 Pannell Road, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Thank you.
And that zoning was rechanged, unbeknown to me, at approximately 2015. Because I came back to this same board right here and had it rezoned back to the way it was, the way I originally bought it. And the reason I say that is I knew nothing about it when the zoning went down. All of a sudden, I went to develop my piece of property, and that's when I found out about it. And then, needless to say, we did a little legwork on this, came back to the board, presented our case, and, you know, they moved my zoning back to the way it was. So, Ron's went the same way, but if you look at that map, there's a zoning change on that right now, and mine is back and Ron is not.
But you asked for a variance to do that, right? To get that
Yes, I
zoning
did. I
change?
came to this
And it was
board
approved?
To put it back the way it
Right.
was, so that I could do the same thing Ron is trying to do right now.
Right, understand.
So without it being back and those situations being straightened out on this piece of property, you have a gentleman standing here that wants to enhance the Walker City tax roll and all that, but his hands are tied.
Mr. Marsman, the variance that you received, was it a mineral mining variance?
I already had mine all done.
Yes or no, was it a mineral mining?
No, it was not. Mine was
Okay.
just rezoning.
Okay, thank you.
And did you take out a bunch of soil to do it?
I did, yes, years ago.
Thank you.
Sorry, thanks for speaking on that. But it was definitely right around 2015. I do have correspondence from the city of Walker around that time that said that it was a very recent thing. So, I mean, that's a real fact. So, what we are proposing to build is more akin to light industrial anyhow. The building that we're looking to build, unlike a concrete plant, is more akin to like a light industrial or warehousing. It is not a factory. It is something that's going to be very harmonious with the neighborhood because it's actually going to be pretty quiet. You know what I mean? Like we're talking, we have warehousing, and some of our giant warehouses have 4 cars, 4 employees running, you know, and there's not a lot of traffic. This is, again, the end result. This is what this is what we started with. This is the goal, to get a building. This is not going to be a factory. It's not going to be a cement plant with concrete tankers. The end goal is to develop this property, or rail cars, yeah. To develop the property so it's harmonious with the industrial and the neighborhood. It's not something that we're ever going to seek a heavy, which we have said in numerous meetings, including the ZBA list.
Could you tell me what's left of the concrete plant that was on the property? Is there a foundation? Is there anything?
This concrete slab.
What's left of the old concrete
The
plant?
scale. The scale's the only thing left.
Is it the concrete, I think?
Okay.
Yeah, the tanks.
The truck scale.
The tanks were like, what, 50, 80 feet? They were ginormous tanks. They were just huge. And
So-
that was the main part of their operation, was those tanks. And they just had that teeny tiny building that was built pretty close to the road, like, you know, where our retention pond would be at this point. So we, and all of that, let's see. So since then, we took those down, and we have been working with the city. We did this whole process, and everyone has actually been very positive about our plans. And I know that you are getting you're only getting part, because instead of getting this massive amount of information, just know that the benefit of us having done all of these steps is not just that we're seeing something. We actually have proof, and we've actually been through public meetings, and we've actually gone through a lot of things to work through the issues of what it is that makes this a well-rounded, harmonious end game. This is not just a, it's just not a win. It's very well planted. We have a grading plan. We have an elevation plan. You name the plan, and we do have it, which makes it very nice from the perspective of, if
Could
you
I
have
ask you a
questions.
question?
Yes.
From the top of the hill to the nearest house, do you have any idea how much property is there?
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. One more time.
From the top of the hill,
I don't know.
the cliff,
Yeah,
to the nearest house behind it, do you know what the distance is?
Like from their property line to the crest of the hill, or from
From
the crest
top of
hill
the-
to their back of their house?
From the top of the hill on this map where the green line is running across?
Jeff, you can sort of see the outline of the houses there. They're sort of
How far
faded.
back? Do you know, if you know, how far back is the nearest house from that line?
Are you looking at this one here? Can you see this one?
I'm looking at the one that Paula has put on the board for me.
On your
You, these are different. Sorry.
Can you
It's-
see this one okay if I show you?
Yeah, I can see that.
So, right, I'm gonna look for the house that's closest back.
From that
It'll be
green,
the least amount of
from the green line on the top.
So, right here is the line that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Here, okay, so this house right here looks like it has the biggest setback, like it's the closest to the property, and it might be like a garage, like a covered porch or something, but like right here is the very back of, it might be a deck.
It's in their backyard.
Yeah, from
They
here
open up their back door and it's in their backyard.
Okay, hey,
Just, okay.
you'll get your turn to talk. You don't talk over other people.
it's like the back of the property, that house has got the biggest amount of house toward the south.
Okay.
And I can't tell if it's like a deck or maybe it's part of the house that juts out, but it's like from there to there. Is that all?
Was 2015 the last time this property was mined?
No.
60s.
16?
60s.
60,
60s.
1960.
Yes, yeah. So this is not, it's not a new.
Yeah, I used to ride my bicycle around up there.
Yeah, are you the one on the dirt bike? Because I want to talk to you. Are you the dirt bike driver?
No, I had a 10-speed.
But you didn't do any damage.
Yeah, no, it's been like that for a long time. So, and as I said, the elevation maps, again, fully support that. That is a fact. These elevations have been naturally made like that, or not naturally, they're not naturally occurring, man-made due
Okay.
to sand mining and industrial use in the past, and even maybe gravel mining, but it's
road
just
construction is-
road
I have-
construction.
I have one more question. When did you start cutting down trees, brush, and assorted vegetation?
When did what?
When did you start cutting down the trees, the brush, and the
3 years
vegetation?
ago. Probably 3 years ago.
December
3 years ago? Did you apply for a variance to do that?
to cut
Why would I
trees down.
need it? I asked, and nobody
No,
said I
they said we
needed
would
to
need
clear
to
my
do it
trees.
too.
You asked whom?
Tricia?
Trevor, I think it was. Trevor,
I don't even know.
All right.
you can cut your own trees. You can't. If you're in your backyard.
Yeah,
you can
I
cut
just
your
want
trees.
to, I just want to know when it began.
Oh, December, I think it was December of 2022. We
And
did
if-
check
And if
into it.
residents behind asked me to leave trees, I did.
Yep, there are a couple of houses on the western side, and they called and they said, can you leave the trees alone? And we did.
And then they also, people have asked us if they could dump their trees after a storm on our property, and we allowed that as well.
Yep, that's on the east side.
Are you aware a few of those trees have actually crashed and fallen?
Some have.
Okay.
The neighbors fell. And then
Yeah.
I think they had to cut it out, finish cutting it out,
Okay.
and asked to dispose it on our property, and their Timber Ridge Tree Company asked, and we said yes. We've been very accommodating as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Cordes, I want to follow up a little bit on the sand mining. Now, certainly your engineers have been out there and taken soil samples and done surveys. I'm assuming that's correct, right?
I have, yeah. I've had engineers out there to take the samples, yeah.
How much of that 300,000 cubic yards is marketable?
All
Okay, and how much is sand going for right now?
$6 a
of it.
ton?
Depends on where you're at.
I mean, I did a little bit of research
Our
today.
3 Mile pit, we get $6 a ton.
$6 a ton, and so that's how sand is sold, by the ton, right?
Not necessarily, it depends
Could
on
be
where
by
you're
the
at.
yard.
Could be by the yard as well.
Okay, by the yard. How much would your sand be sold?
We don't know yet. We'll
We
find out what
haven't
the
had a
market's
vote,
gonna bear.
yeah.
Okay, so we're potentially talking, I had calculated 300,000 cubic yards coming to 810 million pounds, 400,000 tons, okay, have to do all the math, and I calculated at $10 a ton, that's $8 billion.
$10 a ton.
At $10 a ton.
Well, we're not even at
Okay.
$10, right?
The reason I say that is because, like, again, economics doesn't play a factor in, it won't play a factor in my decision, but I'm just wondering why 300,000 cubic yards as opposed to like 50,000 cubic yards? Or
Because it doesn't balance
100,000.
our site down to our neighbors. We need to balance our site to theirs to make the road work the way we want to work,
Okay, down to Mr. Marsman's property.
to the margin.
Okay,
close,
I got it.
closer,
Okay.
And I don't know about the math there, but I do know that we looked at it from like a, how much does this offset the cost perspective? Like, this is not a money-making thing. So ultimately, if we sold all the sand, did you say? That's not-
I just went on the low side, $10 a ton.
But that's a very, very high amount for sand.
Well, it
So-
goes, the research I did said 10 to 50, so you're saying it's $6 a ton, so of course my calculations are gonna be lower than,
Yeah, so.
$8 million.
What we had figured was that based on, even if you look at like the site balancing and stuff, because that's not sheer profit or anything, you gotta think about the equipment and the
Of
insurance
course.
and all that. So ultimately, we would still be about, to do the site balancing and the utilities and whatnot for the building, we'd be about, $2.3 million behind, like way
Okay.
behind. So it's not like the reason we're selling the sand is not to make $10 million. It's because we need to lower the site, and that is just a natural consequence of doing that. You can bring in spoils. We could bring in a whole bunch of free spoils. Personally, I think that's iffy because you're bringing in random dirt, and then you still have to grade it. You still have to balance that site. You still need to compact it. You need to grade it, and that brings vibrations. It brings equipment. So
Tailgates of trucks
Yeah.
slamming all day long.
yeah. So I mean, I know it seems like the sand pit is the worst alternative, but it's not. To balance a site, you either need to bring it down or you need to bring it up when it's shaped like this.
And then it'll be an eyesore.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman, may I
can,
ask-
can we, are you done with your list?
Nope.
No,
I-
okay, all
I
right,
have a
because we're getting
question.
off track here, and I wanna, it's got nothing to do with money, so I wanna get you back on track.
I just had a question
We'll
about
speed it
equipment,
up.
Mr. Chairman.
Wow.
Sure.
Do you have an estimate of how many dump trucks a day
So the other thing,
are going to transfer sand?
no.
Or do you have an estimate for any period of time, if not a day?
It's all economy driven.
But ultimately, when you say it's that many trucks, what you're actually looking at is probably more like leads. Those carry twice as much, the same, half as many truckloads. And you've got to think that the sand mining board could limit the amount of trucks per day. They could limit the amount of material if they felt like, well, based on the situation at smaller scale, based on, this particular, all of the details, they could put those limitations in place. And it sounds like a lot of trucks, but those trucks would be going on a truck route and they would not all be right away. The loader can only load, like even if you want to think about it like this, a loader can only load a truck every 15, 20 minutes, say. So you're not going to have just like hundreds of trucks. You're talking, you might have 30 trucks a week during business hours,
Well,
I don't know.
it goes back to what, in our first meeting, they had talked about their demand. If they have no demand for it, they're not gonna be running trucks anyway, so.
And it's more
It kind of
seasonal.
is a demand thing, so if it's raining, they're not gonna do it, they're,
Is the railroad gonna be used?
Railroad's still being used.
But not-
We're still using the spur,
But not by us. Like,
but they're
Okay.
using our spur, yes.
All
it's a
right.
benefit to their transportation. But again, it's not, I know it sounds like a lot. It sounds terrible. I get that. But this is still spread out over a period of time during daytime hours. It's based on like construction season more. It's not all year. It's not Saturday. You're not talking you know what I mean? There are limitations in the mineral mining thing, and we've actually exceeded those. We've said we were gonna do less hours than that. We said we were gonna go underneath that limit if we get this, because we are smaller scale.
Will the hoppers be covered? The train hoppers,
Oh, yeah, you can't haul without.
they'll
it
be
covered.
covered?
Yeah, if you see someone hauling without it covered, they are not in the law. They're not doing it right.
Okay, thank you.
But also, in the past, we have operated a pit, and we have had very few complaints. We dictate that they have to go the truck route. Those things are labeled. The sign is labeled with the hours. Our phone number is on it. We monitor it. And then we have had in the past where, like, if a new company came in or something and they took the wrong route, Walker has called and they said, hey, that person went down Bristol. And we spoke to them and we said, listen, you cannot do that. I mean, then you don't have reoccurring problems if you address them proactively.
Is your other site near a residential area?
Yes.
Is it?
Corners of back of it.
Yep.
3 Mile. There was one in 3 Mile and right across from Charter School,
Yep.
back
So-
behind.
And then
Okay.
if we ever, I mean, if there was ever a concern, we always addressed it right away. We didn't really have concerns, and that is also on record. You can check. We've been very, very responsive. We
Okay.
have had very few issues, and we've done all the things.
The city engineer mentioned concerns in his memo from last month. So there have been concerns. I don't know how significant they were, I don't remember the details, but he mentioned concerns.
They
And he mentioned the
monitored-
3 Mile site.
Yep, and they monitored for vibration because they were wondering, and we've exceeded all the standards. So,
And
yeah.
that was, we were handling the clay there,
And
and clay does transfer vibrations a little bit, but
the viscosity
we
of
came
clay
in,
is very
and it's on
thin.
record with City Walker that it was fine. It
Yep.
was perfectly fine.
And this is just sand. There's no crushing of materials. There is no clay overburden. There is no stockpiling. There is no different types of aggregates. This is just sand.
Sand.
So you're not removing just like 6 feet of clay. When you do that, you have to bring in heavier equipment. Inherently, it is louder. Inherently, there is more movement. There is more vibration. This situation is incredibly different because the material is literally right there. It's as pure as you can get. It does not need screening. It does not need specialty equipment. And again, no crushing of concrete, no processing of stone. None of those things that are really, if you think about ooh, that sounds, those elements are not.
You're not helping by just going on and on about the same thing.
Yeah.
If we give a mineral, if we just, this is not the mineral mining board. But if they give approval, it frankly doesn't matter whether they're making gravel, grinding up and doing those things, they'll have the certificate to do it.
But we are
Correct?
trying to prove we're being a good neighbor, right? And so.
You are, and can we just stipulate for the record that I acknowledge your veracity in trying to address all the concerns?
Thank you.
And instead of going and saying the same thing over and over? I really do. The memo in there, it looks like you've tried to address a lot of these things as best you can. It's a difficult circumstance. You've made some really good faith efforts here, I think, to address the concerns that have been levied. Doesn't change the fact that it requires all kind of variance to do this. But you have certainly done your best to mitigate the concerns, I think. I believe that. I don't need to hear it over and over.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm looking at that 75-foot setback. So is the idea, I'm going to call it a cliff, unless somebody's got a better term.
I think
But
exactly right.
I have heard that it is currently a 30-foot drop, or read.
Like 30 foot in elevation or like,
From the edge of the current area where you're excavating or whatever, to the back of that property, it's 30 foot down to the, I guess, the base of the area. Is that right? About a 30-foot drop?
Well, there's probably that and elevation change, yes.
yeah.
Okay. Is it a drop off right now? That's my
So-
question.
The retaining wall is going to be a 30-foot wall.
Yeah, there will
It's
be.
a 30-foot drop.
Okay, all right. So there will be a 30-foot retaining wall.
Yes.
All right. All right. Will
Currently,
that,
some parts are pretty steep and some are more
Okay.
gradual. It's very like undulating hills.
right, right. So, it's going to be about a 30-foot drop.
It'll be tapered, it's not gonna just drop,
Okay.
you're not gonna walk
Okay.
off the edge.
And it will begin at that 75-foot line that I'm looking at?
I think it's a little south of that.
I mean, following the rules, it could be where that 75-foot mark is at. Is that right?
It won't be
It
75.
won't be at the
I mean,
75.
75 foot.
I'm looking at the rules.
Okay.
It could be, right? per your ask, it could start there,
yeah.
right? Right, okay, thank you. And it will be a gradual, I don't know what, you know.
More like
eight-
4-on-1.
Okay. So, I have a degree in engineering. About what angle is that then? You know, from,
For every 4 foot, will be a foot of drop.
okay, okay,
Which is, I think it meets or exceeds standards.
okay,
It'll be determined by, that would also be determined
By your mineral
by the
mining
mineral
board.
mining board. If they felt like it needed something
Okay.
different than the standard, then they could set that in their parameters.
okay.
Okay,
And I also, just a couple more questions.
okay.
All right. So I did read about the rules for the fencing as well. It doesn't say what type of a fence.
Oh, yeah.
Is it I just took down a old wood fence. It's about 20 years,
Yeah.
depending upon what's going on. But there were concrete footings and things like that. I'm just wondering about the longevity of whatever is put up there. Could you
Yes.
explain that a little bit?
So the standard dictates it's gotta be a 6-foot fence. Nice side is toward the neighbors,
Yeah.
you know, and so we've looked into a few options. Currently we've got a pin in it, we're gonna see, you know, but, we're leaning toward vinyl. And the reason is, it does, I think most people find it to look nicer. It ages well, and it's a little more expensive, but it should really, accent the area. And so that's what we're leaning toward, and it's a solid vinyl, and it looks very nice in like the photos I've seen. We have an installer who has actually installed a fence along that property, so he's familiar with the drop-off, and he said that it should be conducive with, the wind comes from the west, so it should be right along that fence line. The only concern with vinyl is that it does not do well with high winds, but he said that based on the conditions there, the wind comes from the west, and so ultimately, the vinyl would make a good choice. If we could also do wood, the price is a little cheaper, but I just don't think, as you said, that it might age as well.
So, and with wood, you have to get on both sides of the property to
That's true,
install it.
that's-
The vinyl, you
You
don't.
just-
We
you
can
can-
install it all from our
Right,
side.
okay.
And that would just be nice for the neighbors too, because then they're not having to have fence installers
Yeah,
on their property.
I'm getting at maintenance and things
You don't
like
have the wood
that.
falling off.
Yeah.
Right.
Re-nailed and yes.
Okay,
So
So we're
that's,
going with
we're
a
leaning
plastic composite type vinyl fence.
white, so.
okay. All right, thank you.
You bet. Okay,
You're good? You guys are,
I don't wanna.
any other
say it.
questions? We're more than happy to answer them.
no, I'm good. I want to make sure you get everything in, because it's,
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
As you've seen here today, we brought all the neighbors together, but probably not for a reason they wanted. So, but yeah, if you have any more questions, we certainly have the answers. I usually always have the documentation to support what I'm saying.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I talk a little bit about the zoning issue before we have the public speak?
Okay,
So regarding this, so first of all, just to be clear to everybody, on the bigger boards around the city, we will have appointed members who are great volunteers supporting our city, and then we'll have one elected official on lots of these boards. So I am a city commissioner here in Walker on the Zoning Board of Appeals. My colleague Steve Gilbert is on mineral mining. My other colleague, Elena Heisinger-Chase, is on Planning Commission. So we'll have one commissioner on each of the bigger boards, just to kind of add context and when necessary, sort of give advice as to where the city commission is and where the future of the city is going. And so I'd just like to briefly cover that a little bit before we go into the specifics of this case. When it comes to rezoning, a rezoning request in this case, and it was done in 2015. If it was, fine. I really don't care. We put out a new master plan in 2020. The new master plan is the plan for the vision, the future of the city. That's the document that we put out that shows you as citizens where we intend to go as a city. That's what drives our thinking in most cases around the city, is what does that master plan have to say? So if the zoning here is residential, and a plan came to us to make it into industrial, we would say hard no to that. I could guarantee you, we would say no to that, because it's not in the vision of our vision for the future. We might have an issue because of the whole CE thing. Now that you look at, right now it's in the master plan is existing agricultural open space. The community character is community enterprise, which you could argue light industrial would be okay with, certainly not heavy industrial, which is what it's zoned for now, is heavy industrial. But then the future land use for it calls it to be business, which would be perhaps light industrial, but also lighter uses. In other words, the vision for the future of this property in the city is getting away from industrial uses and more towards, particularly in Ward 1 of the city. Ward 1 is getting very full. There are very few areas of green space we can develop anymore. We're getting to a point where we have to really fight for the green space we have in Ward 1. I happen to be a commissioner in Ward 1, so you're my voters. And so we have to really think about where we're going with the future. None of this has anything directly to do with the zoning board specific request in front of us, other than it's important for you to know, if you look at condition 3, the variance is a substantial detriment, blah, 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 blah. Is it with the intents and purposes of the public interest? And the city commission is trying to, in fact, follow the public interest, being their elected representatives. So that's one important thing I want to make sure you understand. And so if we approve this tonight, if we approve this variance tonight, it goes back to mineral mining. They probably approve it because they don't have any real discretion like ZBA does. It goes back to planning. Planning will get it with a preliminary site approval, a site assessment, and then planning will recommend a rezone. They'll send it to city commission and we will shoot it down. That's how I would expect it to go down right now. So this would be a very long process to get a no. However, because of the way mineral mining works, if we approve this tonight, that residential area will be able to be excavated. In other words, by approving this tonight, we will have undermined the clear intent of our city commission. I want to make sure you're very clear about that. Because the city commission has made it clear that they're not going to go, that they have a different vision for the future of the city. So I think that context is important. Thanks.
Okay, if there's anyone that'd like to make a comment that has not done so, I need you to step to the microphone and state your name and address.
Mr. Chairman, may interrupt you when you're done, please? I have a list of names here from the previous, I don't know if this is proper procedure, but I guess we've been through this for many hours. There's been public comment at the last meeting. There's been letters submitted. I have a list of names here, and I thought it was referred to that we really don't want to rehash the stuff that we went through the last meeting. Do we need to rehash the letters that we all received today? I don't think that, I have numerous names here that I want to hear the public, but we've already heard the public. I guess I'd like to monitor this and say, hey, if you've spoken or written a letter before, we'd let the other people speak at this point.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
It's the ones that have not spoken at the previous.
Correct.
What if you have new information that hasn't been discussed? And Randy, with all due respect,
You should have.
you might have spent many hours on this endeavor, but this is the next, potentially, according to their site plan, the next 5 to 10 years of our lives in our community, our sanctuary, our home. I've got 84 signatures here of people, some of which are here today, most of which are not, that I made a promise to, that I said, when I went around door to door, getting support, opposing this variance, that I wanted to be able to go up here to you commissioners and say that I'm not the only one that feels this way. So I do respect and understand that some of the things that I might say you've already heard, but I will guarantee you most of which you have not. And if you don't want me to speak, someone else will speak on my behalf. So what I have prepared today, regardless, will get discussed and be on record.
Okay, so I'm going back to whoever has not spoken and would like to do so. I need your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
We need to open public comment?
No, because we already opened and closed it.
Hello to the board. My name's Al Berry. I live at 2311 Powers Avenue Northwest. I've been there for over 30 years. And I've enjoyed the property behind. It belongs to the city of Walker. It's really a drainage area. And we've been having successful drainage for over 30 years to this point. And I noticed the young lady had talked about them doing some type of study, but I was also wondering whether the board had independently looked at the consequences of removing 275,000 cubic yards of soil from that site. I have to say I've enjoyed the area, walking through it with my family. We have noticed recently that there's a lot of trees down. Between me and you, I couldn't believe the part where somebody said, yeah, just go knock some of my trees down. Didn't sound right to me. I noticed too that we have fewer animals in the back than we used to have. There's been some crazy sounds coming out of that site, particularly recently. It sounds like a boom, boom, boom. And I take it maybe that had something to do with one of my front trees falling and crushing my fence recently. But this is, it's a matter not so much of money. It's a matter of how much we care about that site. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Name and address, please.
Charlie Janitas, 1140 Pannell. I sent in an email, so I'm just going to read off of this. I'm going to try to brush over the points that maybe have already been contested, just to speed things along. So, drainage, it stated that it will be monitored and constructed during initial phase. When would that pertain to the retaining wall? So they spoke about the fence, there'd be footings, with cement, then you have to do trees, then the retaining wall. Can that be done immediately, or do we have to wait on that? Yeah. Buffer and landscaping, the fence. The quote, they've been quoted, is it gonna be done immediately? Noise and vibration, some issues related to above. RBC mentions fencing to the north. Is there gonna be anything to the south? Is there gonna be any buffer or noise reducing boundaries there? We also take good faith at RBC to reduce their hours on Saturdays, but, unfortunately, upon research, I had looked up that Ron Cordes is associated with Michigan Rail and Storage. And I've sent this in the email. There's actually DEQ records for odor disturbance. There was Alpine Township meeting complaining about this business that he's affiliated with. And it looks like it took place for 4 or 5 months in 2015. So I would argue that that track record doesn't necessarily go along with the story that they're telling us, that they will take into concern the surrounding residents. Dust control, I think you're gonna have a whole bunch of equipment, things running all around. They're just gonna mitigate it by water, but they have a whole other operation. I just find that hard to believe that you're gonna be able to manage all of that and keep those residents happy. They said safety was a huge concern. They had that cement structure that had ladders, steps that could go up 100 feet, 150 feet, that took 5 years to remove, right? They said they had vandalism, trespassing, but it took 5 years to remove it. What if something had happened in between that time? I think if they had safety as a precedent, it would have been done after a year or two. I think that covers most of what I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Michelle Donk, and I'm at 2340 Cloverly. I'm at the bottom of the hill from where the houses are located. I've lived in our home since 1972, and it has gotten louder and messier given all of the construction between 3 Mile and 4 Mile, and now with them wanting to do what they're doing on Pannell. I did not come to the last meeting because from the noises and from the looks of it, they were already doing what they wanted to do. I don't know what the trucks are coming in and out already for, if it's whatever. I just know that when those trees came down, no one was consulted. And there, you can see the fences for people's backyard, and then it drops off. There's nothing. I can see fireworks downtown if I want to. That's fabulous, but it doesn't fix the fact that they've decimated nature areas, that animals have lived, and now are overcrowding the city. I wonder why. But the bottom line is that this is not what we want in our neighborhood. They had the things in the 60s and the 70s, because it's all it is sand. We all live on sand there, so I can't understand how having a huge drop-off behind people's houses that is built on sand and then putting some kind of retaining wall up is a good idea. And it's just very upsetting that we would allow this to happen to our neighborhood. But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Ross Marsman. I represent Marsman Construction. Our property lies to the east of this property that Mr. Cordes owns.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we border the entire east line of the property. We have been there now for 70 years, and to us, it appears as if Mr. Cordes is in the process of cleaning up the mess that has been left by the prior two owners, and by flattening the property down and making it better access to get in to build buildings. It will also allow Walker City Police to do a better job of patrolling in the area, whereas right now it's a gated area and it's quite rough terrain. So we feel it would be a good decision to drop this property down at our level or thereabouts and use it as an industrial property, which it is zoned. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Hello, my name is Jared Seagraves,
And I'm Rose Seagraves.
and we live at 2321 Powers. And first I want to say this, I did not even hear about the prior hearing about this at all. Paul was the one that notified me about this entire thing.
We knew nothing about it. We never got any postcards, any notice, anything to even come to the meeting the last time. Okay? So we are behind the ball here and feel like we got the rug pulled out from underneath us.
And I want to say, at that zoning right up against those houses, I know back in those woods that there's a little small path that's just beyond their backyards. And that's right against that cliff up there. I know that path there is because when I was a child, I used to walk there with my friends along that path, and it was outside of the cement mixer place. But that cliff right there, that's right against their backyard. I mean, the walking path is not even there because it's eroded away over time.
And regarding the retaining wall, is that gonna be a cement wall? Because, yeah, sand just goes. Behind our house is the drainage, Walker owns that, and, the sand is making even trees fall, okay? So, without anything up there to really hold the sand, I could just see all that stuff coming right through the vinyl fence.
Okay.
And another big concern of mine is the time frame about this whole project. Noise pollution is one thing, even if you limit it to a certain amount of time of day, well, that's just to prolong the whole thing. And so that's really a big concern of mine.
Okay, thank you. Hi.
My name's Laura Fox. I live at 2300 Glen Valley Drive Northwest, the most beautiful view in the city. Can I show you a picture, especially John?
Sure.
On my phone? You can pass it down. That's my fence. That's the drop off. So a couple things. First of all, I feel like just as a comment in general, as much as I understand business, you're trying to fit a round peg in a square hole or a square peg in a round hole. This is not what this property is meant to be, obviously. If you've got 500 feet setback and you're dropping it to 75, these numbers don't add up to what the city of Walker intended for our residences to be like. You wouldn't want it in your backyard. I sure as hell don't want it in my backyard. If you see it, my backyard is absolutely gorgeous. I've spent a ton of money developing it. I'm retired now. I want to enjoy it. And some of the comments that they've made, I just find kind of silly, because answer me this question. When do you want to be outside sitting by your fire pit? What season? I don't give a that they're going to be closed in winter. You, me, and everybody in this room wants to be outside in their backyard in the summer, in the spring, in the fall. And I don't want piles of dust that are already happening because they're already doing something. I watch it every day. They're loading sand in trucks. The trucks are driving off. There's machinery running. There's dust in my backyard. They're excavating already without permission. So this is moot if they're just going to do whatever they want to do without permission.
What's your address again, sorry?
2300 Glen Valley Drive Northwest. So those are my comments.
Okay.
Square peg, round hole, wasn't meant to be, don't want it, I don't deserve it. This is my retirement, this is my time to enjoy my backyard and relax, and I didn't plan to move into a construction zone.
May I ask a question?
Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question. If I'm allowed, do you have any clue as to how deep they're going to dig? And if there's groundwater down there?
70 feet is what their site plan says.
Okay, thank you.
If you go to Marshall's property, you look at what used to be, because they've already started pushing some sand.
Okay, ma'am, you can come up. Ma'am. Thank you. Name and address, please.
My name is Joyce Hopp, and I'm at 2314 Glen Valley Drive Northwest.
Okay.
So from the corner of our backyard, we can kind of like right through the woods to the southeast is where St. Mary's used to be, and their developed property now. I'm kind of doing notes just so I remember what I wanted to say. The grading issues and setbacks have been in existence since 1960s, according to what was said earlier. And when asked what the main reason for this was, the answer was kind of evaded. And she said that it was primarily an effort to lower the site. I don't think that's wholly believable. Obviously, they're a for-profit business, and it's not just about leveling the ground so they can be even with their neighbors. Mining is a profit, is for profit, and that's a priority of the landowners. The precedent of noise and lighting issues all hours of the day and evening have been around since 2015, actually way before they took over. It's a bit disrespectful and dismissive to imply that a row of trees and a 6-foot fence will be appropriate sound decibel protection. Others may step up to discuss this, but issues have been brought up by neighboring residents, and they were not respected. Large mining machinery is not harmonious to the community. Using the word again and again does not change the facts. It's not harmonious. The terminology is silliness. Based on the numbers the speaker stated earlier, heavy equipment trucks would be in and out all week long at approximately 6 to 10 trucks a day. They're not in and out. They're in, they're running, they're loading, they're unloading. There's a lot going on with each truck. So it's an all-day business. That's all I got.
Okay, all right.
And a silly thing is the animals are going away. It is getting louder. We can see the lights all night long.
At our last meeting, the owner suggested they'd be willing to stop operations at 5 PM.
That's great unless my granddaughter's napping, unless, we still have families that live there 8 to 5.
Okay.
We
Okay.
really do.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
My name is Andrew Hopp. I live at 2314 Glen Valley Northwest Drive. I am one property over from where this is planned. I considered mentioning about like the loss of the woods that I was raised up with, which I can now clearly see through during the day, but I'm sure other people have lost more without any heads up. The way I found out about this was actually through Paul, and thank you. The only heads up I was given was a small piece of green paper, which I truly and fully disregarded as junk mail, as it was put in the same spot and with the same disregard as any other piece of mail that I've seen. Touching again on the word harmonious, it almost feels insulting, given that no efforts have been made and I haven't been approached in any meaningful way to actually mitigate any of the noise complaints, which I actually work in a distribution warehouse, and the idea that they're saying it's a small scale, it is a little misleading. The smallest scale warehouses, there will still constantly be noise, even high-lows, trucks backing up. They're designed, when in reverse, to alert people to their presence. And assuming, I believe, the number of 10 vehicles, I question that without any doubt, simply because once the plant is operational, sorry, I'm getting a little off track. Thank you. I'm getting it off on that.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Hi there.
I'm Steve Soderquist. I live at 1288 Harding. I just want to start off with saying I met Mr. Corris about 3 years ago when he came into my driveway. Ours is the one that has the shed on his property. It had been there long before my parents purchased that property. And now I've moved in with my mom to start helping up there and all sorts of stuff. I just want to say this. You guys have heard it all tonight and all that sorts of things. I teach middle school, done it for 26 years. What I've learned over the years is very simple. For me, it's always been people over property, or people over profit. What do we do? How far do we go for the sake of profit? When we're starting to engage in anger, and everybody has their say, and it's half says and things like that. All I want to say is this. I met Mr. Cordes, enjoyed him. Him and I stuck up a decent relationship, but I'm not in favor of this at all. I mean, it's my backyard, right? Why would I be? But I don't want to anger him either, because there's just people over profit, right? That's the biggest thing for me. Plus, Paul sent me up here, and I'm going to drop off the signatures as well. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
If I can approach, I didn't ask.
Yep, no, you're fine.
Take your time. Thank you.
Go ahead. Name and address, please.
All right, my name is Lydell Weaver. My address is 1316 Harding. My property is right behind where this is supposedly supposed to be. And me and my wife and my kids moved to the area in 2013. And when we moved there because it's a family-safe neighborhood, keep our kids safe, and it was a good place to raise our kids and raise our kids through the Kennewill Hills School District. That's why we moved there. It's a residential area, so it's the city, but you get a little taste of country, the animals and things like that. So when the trees came down, okay, I get it, but it was tough to see because the trees have been there since we moved in 2013. But I think the basis of everything is I really ask you guys to put yourself in our shoes, or put yourself in my property, put yourself in my family's shoes with the property right behind there. Would you want to be in your backyard wanting a factory and mining 2 to 3 years? You cannot tell me that 2 or 3 years of mining is not going to do something to your foundation of your house. You can't tell me that. I'm sorry. But I just don't think this is the way to go. Part of the Walker plan is, a place to live. This is our home, this is our sanctuary, this is our place to live, not to have all this mining of sand and a factory for the future of it. This is a residential neighborhood where we're raising family and kids here. So, that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Jane Ungry. I live at 1420 Lomont Court Northwest. I'm not really adjacent to the property, but I wanted to make you aware that there are a lot more people here because of the due diligence of some of the people in the neighborhood that took it upon themselves to walk door to door and make us aware. So because I didn't live within so many feet of this, we weren't informed. But yet it still affects us because I drive by Pannell Road every day. I go down Pannell Road multiple times a week. It's just really not something that is feasible for the area. I mean, you're talking about a huge variance in feet, and they're saying they wanted to bring things down so that it was more on a level. Well, the poor people that are looking out their backyard are now looking in a frickin' sand pit instead of at hills. So what's the difference if they're looking down at a building or if they're looking up at a building, this high or this high? I just don't think it's a feasible thing for this area, mainly because of the huge variance. If they're supposed to have so many feet, I think the city of Walker really should stick by what the variance, by what the city is requesting each piece of property to have. So I just wanted to make you aware that there are more people here, and that's why, because we were made aware where initially we weren't. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Alan Bazowski, 1330 Harding. I live just across from what they're building, and my house is the highest and furthest back. I'm literally at the top of the hill. Mr. Portcoat asked a question, how close is the deepest house? That would be mine. It's going to be about 25 feet. So he would be only 100 feet where he apparently stops his digging. I have already noticed from the past 2 years from the machinery he's had up there removing the trees that my house constantly shakes throughout the summer. It is all sand. It has already started to shift. My driveway sits up higher while my neighbors enjoy street level parking almost. Mine comes up. It's already suffered a lot of damage from the erosion that has happened from the constant shaking. And I'm afraid that if I have to endure years more, it's going to destroy the foundation of my home. And I want to know, what kind of protections you would give for all of us who are sitting on the other part of the sand hill that he's not going to be digging up while our properties are being damaged by all the vibrations. So that's all I wanted to
Okay,
say.
thank you, sir.
Hey, Brian, question for you, if that's all right.
Okay.
So the last meeting was kind of a whim, right? I know that the city, it's not a law, it's not a rule, I guess, it's a courtesy to send this mailer to everyone within 300 feet. And I really appreciate the city of Walker's effort to extend that courtesy all the way to 500 feet. It went from encompassing 8 houses to just over 30. However, I do ask you that a lot of work has been put into preparing for this meeting, because the last meeting, again, was me going on a whim. I normally get that mailer
You have 3 minutes, same as everyone else.
I have one question for RBC real quick, if that's all right.
You can put it out there. He can choose to respond if he wants to after you're done.
I just wanted to clarify before I say some of this, as I believe there's 2 sites on 3 Mile. But were you operating out of the Wisnesky mine? Okay, he was. All right. So here we go. Hopefully my 3 minutes can start now. My name is Paul Cole. I live at 2328 Glen Valley Drive. I'm here today to oppose the ordinance variance request by RBC Development for 1331 Pannell Street. Now, believe it or not, I do want RBC to use the land as they see fit. However, I also don't believe that any landowner should profit from their land in a way that'll take real value away from their neighbors. The area is already less desirable because of the added noise for everyone within 1,000 feet and the scenery change for the immediate residents that have become accustomed to the woods on the south side of Harding over the last 45 years. We can better hear pad notes, the junkyard, the trains that go through, and of course the activities from 1331 that's been taking place for the last couple of years. I'm 2,000 feet away, according to Access Kent, from Lucky's junkyard or auto salvage. And that number is significant because I chose to go about 1,000 feet away from my house because I knew that 1,000 feet from my house, if I can hear Lucky's 2,000 feet away announce that they're gonna close at 4:30 every day, that these people are gonna hear it at least 1,000 feet, okay? And I met some great people, but I've got a lot to discuss. The fact of the matter is RBC could build a 200,000 square foot factory if they wanted to. They could push sand around, that's about 4.59 acres if you're curious, okay? And I believe, Mary, the number is 275,000 cubic yards that they're trying to extract based on my own research and the Wisnesky mine, I'll just say.
I was just estimating rounding.
Yeah, and I'm no expert either, but the numbers I have is about $3 a cubic yard. It's at least $1 million worth of sand, okay? Yeah, I want to say that this company had access to a real nice mine in Walker that they operated out of for years. And the way it was worded to me was they pulled out all the easy stuff, and then they decided they didn't want to continue mining the site when they started to reach clay. So despite their agreement, they jumped ship. Now, I know this may be business as usual for some, but for the residents of Alpine Estates, this is personal. This is our sanctuary. This is our community. The applicant tells you what he's going to put in 5 to 10 years from now, but the reality is once that sand is gone, he may do nothing, okay? He may end up jumping ship on the city of Walker like he did the Wisnesky mine. He thought he would get an easy exemption to extract the material under the guise of site preparation for potential redevelopment, which he did not get. The applicant also told you April 9th that the proposed cliff, and this, Jeffrey, this was your question, behind Harding wasn't going to be like the one behind Meyer. Nothing like that, in quotes, he said. According to Access Kent's parcel mapper, it's 200 feet from the back of the credit union to where the paved area on Meyer curves around. So even if it's exactly like Meyer, that's gonna encompass, or, more than 1/3 of his property on the one side. I don't see that drawn in the plans, meaning I would expect a much more steep decline.
Okay, your 3 minutes is up.
All right, well, I do appreciate
Yeah,
the opportunity.
thank you.
You've heard it all. Scott Beamister for 2480 Glen.
What's your name and address?
Pardon?
Name and address?
Scott Beamister for
Okay, I'm sorry, I
2480
missed it.
Glen Valley.
Okay.
You've heard it all. Your backyard? How about yours? Come on. This is a residential area. I've been there almost 30 years. We don't need dump trucks. We don't need any of that. And you're not listening, so I'll stop talking.
I'm listening. I heard every word you said.
I'm just bringing up some of the new stuff. Stan Janitas, 1300 Pannell. I was up here at the last meeting, and some of the concerns I had, again, with Curtis is when he operated over on Benton, and they ran into the same thing with the rail cars. They had problems with it. They got fined by the DQ for problems over there. They had residents that were actually complaining. They didn't do nothing with the rail cars. So the worst part of it, they talk about taking that spur out. I don't believe they're gonna take it out. They'll probably still continue to use it if they're especially gonna use it for the storage, okay? You guys all know about the trip pit. I think you've all heard about that too. Digging and digging and digging. Who knows what water basin they're gonna get into? We got a lot of wells through that. It's all, there's no city water or anything on Pannell Road. It is strictly wells. Some of those wells range anywhere from the 40, 42 feet down to 100 feet. That digging into that pit, yeah, it depends how deep. Did I hear 70 feet they're gonna go down? That's gonna affect a lot of water basin. Within 350 to 400 feet, I recorded last night, I was gonna play it today, but the frogs, the tree frogs, all the creatures that are, cause it's all a natural pond right on 1300 Pannell. That's within 350 to 400 feet from that, place where they're gonna be, doing the excavating. That's gonna affect a lot of that. I still hear the frogs peeping, which means there's no pollution, cause I've lived there 58 years. I'm sorry, 58 was when I was born. I've lived there 67 years almost. So, but anyways, vandalism to those towers, when they talked about the vandalism, I've lived there all my life, there was never a problem. There was never a problem with the towers or anything like that, so. Again, you know, he obtained the property in 2015, but to be honest, the extra property he obtained in August of 22 was the sand hill. That sand hill was not part of any plan of this till he got access to that in 22 and bought it. So that needs to be clarified. That's about it. And as far as the booming and stuff, yes, there is a lot of noise that we get a lot of vibration. We get a lot of it being that we're right across the street from it to the south. So it is definitely noisy. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? Sir, do you have any idea how deep the water table is, since you stated some figures about the wells?
15 feet.
15 feet behind your house or the whole property?
Well, actually, from the property from where our house is down 15 feet is where the water table is.
Has anyone done an aquifer study to see how large that aquifer is?
I have no idea.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, I know those are all natural springs through there, because like right where the pond and everything starts, that's where all the natural springs are actually coming out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dawn Campbell. I live at 1438 Winslow.
Ma'am, you already spoke once.
I did.
Last
So
time.
did they. I just have a quick comment. It'll be less than your 3 minutes. But
No, this will go on all night.
all three of those people were
Ma'am.
at the last meeting.
No. We're done. It's, the people that spoke last week, or last time, that's it. We had listened to the new ones.
But there was 3 other people that spoke last
Ma'am,
week that you just left.
I didn't catch them. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
My name's Christy Vandenbrand. I'm at 2335 Glen Valley, and I just have 2 points I want to make.
Thank you.
I don't know why the city engineer's report wasn't discussed at the last meeting. He raised a lot of negatives, and to quote one of them, the city mineral mining ordinance has a number of conditions that help to protect the rights of adjacent landowners, to protect from friction between residential areas and sand mines, including impacts of noise and vibration. But those are normal sounds that we should expect at this site if a sand mine is approved. And the other question I have is, won't this set a precedent for any other mining operation that doesn't require 20 acres and the 500-foot setback? I mean, we could have mines popping up anywhere anyone wants to dig. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that list.
Cynthia Pierce, 1296 Glen Air. I'm a ways away, but that whole subdivision is set up on sand. The whole subdivision. And you start taking sand out, and I'm already getting vibrations at my house, and I'm in the middle of the subdivision. So if it gets any worse, and I've got cracks in my basement now that I never had, and I've been there 30 years. So that's all I got to say. I just think we start taking it out. Everything's gonna shift.
Miss, do you have water in your basement? Do you have water coming in your basement?
No, I do not at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, please. Yeah.
So I just,
Enough. This is procedure. He gets to respond to your comments.
so I'm.
Go ahead.
Chad Mancarelli, LRE 21213 Mile Road Northwest. Just want to make one kind of clarification. There was comments
Okay,
about
thank you.
water. I heard some people mumbling if we did soil borings. We did do soil borings kind of down in the floor of the existing property. There is about a 20-foot cut as it stands. Some of the higher numbers that people were discussing were from the top of the hill down, but there obviously is a existing elevation difference from the top down now. The bottom of the pit, or the bottom of the property there, would be removing about 20 feet. We got soil borings that went down 40 feet from that existing bottom, and we didn't encounter groundwater. So that's the only thing I want to
Okay.
add.
All right, thank you. All right.
If I may, Chair,
Yeah.
just
Yep.
I received many comments from the public via email. The board has access to all of them at this time, but as I told those who emailed me, their comments are part of the public record. They will be included in the minutes of this meeting. All of the comments I received were against the variance being granted, and for various reasons, all of which we heard from other members of the public today. And so I will read you their name and address, and then you have them all, but it's part of the record. So
Okay.
from Barbara and Peter Weatherhead at 1289 Harding, Greg Laurent at 2464 Glen Valley, Lois Packer, 2447 Glen Valley, Lori Leonard, 2480 Glen Valley, Christy Vandenbrand, 2335 Glen Valley, Jennifer Jones, 1259 Glen Air, Al Berry, 2311 Powers, Kim Janitis, 1300 Pannell, Don Campbell, 1438 Winslow, Laura and Norma Fox, 2300 Glen Valley, and Charlie and Rachel Janitis, 1206 and 1140, 1142 Pannell. All of those are consistently against the project. And I also have the list, the stack of petitions, and so as part of the record, a copy of the petition and a list of all those who signed it will be included in the minutes as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that,
You're gonna have a very thick file.
we're gonna kick it out to the board to discuss and make some kind of determination, I guess. All right, go ahead.
So, parsing out what we can really use for our judgments and what opinions versus facts is kind of tricky to do. A lot of comments were made tonight on both sides that I don't find very relevant. You can tell me how awesome you are, you can tell me how bad they are, and if there's not proof to that, it's not a lot of help for us, at least not for me. The fact is, not in my backyard isn't particularly useful either, because it's zoned industrial, and it's in the master plan to stay zoned industrial. So we have to live with that. I've got a concrete plant across the street from my house. I live right on West River. I don't like the truck noise on West River. I don't like the concrete plant, but I bought it. That's the way it is. I knew what the zoning was when I got it. So the proper light industrial, I think, should and could and should be allowed there. So to me, that's not particularly an issue. But the northern 2/3 piece that is residential, in my view, is sacrosanct and can't be touched. It was rezoned 10 years ago. The master plan validated it in 2020. That comes to me as city commission, I'll shoot it down every time. And with the current city commission, I think you'd have a unanimous vote to disapprove a rezoning to go industrial again. We don't want to go that direction. We want to go the opposite direction. But this can certainly be light industrial, and the proper project would be fine with me. And I would personally not be very persuaded by, well, it's going to be loud while they install their new light industrial facility on the southern part there. They have a right to that property, and if it's loud for a while, so be it. Again, not persuaded by that. But we're talking about something different with this variance, though. We're talking about allowing a massive offset against all directions of the ordinance, and I find that very hard to understand. I find it very hard to understand why you'd even ask. It doesn't meet any of the criteria. It's not even close. And I think the comment about the city engineer is very important, and for me it's a decisive comment, that he makes it, our city engineer, who we trust greatly, he's been here a very long time, we take his advice very seriously, he makes it very clear that our mineral mining policy is very good. And in his 28 years, he's seen in other communities where it's not good and they have all kinds of problems. Us ignoring the 500-foot offset completely by a long shot, in my mind, is irresponsible. We have a good policy. We should execute that policy. It's there for reasons. The reasons are to keep all that activity away from residential properties. It's pretty common sense. So for me, and then he talks about grading in his report. He talks about 55,000 trucks and who knows, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. But to me, the fundamental request we've been asked to do is allow a variance to, on every border, you're not even close to allowing. It's not a variance, it's a deviation. It's an extraordinary, 2 standard deviations is a variance. This is way beyond that. That's my opinion. I'm very hard over that I'll be a no vote on this, both for reasons 1 and 3. I don't think there's any exceptional circumstance here. You're perfectly allowed to make it light industrial. That's fine. You're not allowed to denude the entire area and take out and override the requirements we have in our mineral mining ordinance to do that. There's nothing extraordinary about it to me. And then the detriment to the neighborhood, I've made it clear that the city commission is looking in the public interest to move towards less of this activity in this area, and this is in violation of that as well. So I'm against for reasons 1 and A and C, or 1 and 3. Thanks.
Mary?
Well, I essentially I'm going to reiterate what I said at the first meeting, which is I believe there is a reason for a mineral mining site to be at a minimum of 20 acres, and that is to be as a buffer from other types of zoning, in this case particularly residential zoning. So my principal reason for opposing this, and I think it will be a terrible detriment to the surrounding community, a terrible detriment. So I'm going to be a no vote as well.
I had the opportunity to visit the neighborhood in question here. Saturday, I tried to visit the construction site as well. It was gated off, and I certainly didn't want to trespass. But so I walked with the permission of some of these property owners. They welcomed me to take a walk back and see. And I'm sensitive to the fact that you have a business that you want to run. However, I am very, very concerned as it stands now. I am presently in the process of excavating a small hill. It's about 3 foot tall and 90 foot long. It's sand. I've had 2 cave-ins. I'm just wondering what you guys are gonna do right now to mitigate a potential cave-in. It's serious if it's all sand. Now, I did not see your site, but I am told, and I saw the picture, it's sand. But beyond all of that, going from a 20-acre requirement to almost a 12-acre request, and from 500 to 75, that's radical. It's way out of scope, way out of scope. As a child, I grew up next to a gravel pit, and that gravel pit was thousands of feet away, and we could hear we could hear what was going on. There was a mining operation. So again, I'm very sensitive to, a private business and trying to make a profit for your company, but this is a no for me.
Randy?
Well, I'm still staying the way I felt the last meeting. So I think the property rights here are being abused by the current zoning. I don't think that we can use money, whether he makes 10 million or $2, it doesn't matter. He has property rights to bring this into what everybody else in the city and the neighboring property owners have on both sides of him, across the street, and also be content, make sure he takes care of the neighbors. So he can't even put a building on there he can't excavate the detention basin with what's left there to provide so he can exercise what he bought the property from or somebody else. He has rights too. Now we can balance that with what we need to do as a city. But by taking that money thing and playing that game, playing a little bit of politics, playing that game, and then also we're taking his property rights away from him. I don't see where that would stand a lick of chance in a circuit court. That's my opinion. I also would like to ask, and this is not a zoning, we're not doing zoning here. The zoning is a separate deal, like Tom said. That comes later. This is just to find out if we can change these setbacks so that he can exercise his property rights, develop it like he's supposed to and to our city standards, and we get through the engineering, we get through all the staff stuff, and there's a nice building in there. Now, I inspected 13 of these buildings this spring, like he's talking about putting up. These buildings that they're gonna put there that I see, and our planning commission can figure out what's going on. We've got them all over our city. I got a whole list here on Northridge that I've done, on Walken, on Wilson. They're nice buildings. I know that's all industrial zoning, but guess what, folks? All those lots got mined too. This isn't a mining thing. They're right now on 96, they're filling over. They're hauling in more yards of sand just to get a lot ready to build. He wants to get this lot ready to build. He can't help it that sand's there. He just needs the permission to do it. He has no other way, no other route, unless we give him a variance right now and make the other steps to have a piece of property that he has the rights to develop. That's where I'm standing on this issue.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Greg?
I sort of follow in that realm, that area, if they can't do anything with it, it's just a disaster to look at. And one of those buildings, the metal building structure and the nice parking lot would enhance that corner and just provide years of beautification as opposed to just big piles of sand. That's it.
Okay. Jeff?
For the same reasons that were given by three of my other panelists, I would vote no. And what particularly troubles me is that there is one resident up there that is already having cracks in her basement. Now, having served on the city's zoning board of appeals and the assessor's office for assessments of Grand Rapids for the last 10 years, I just know if you got cracks in your basement, you got a big problem coming. So no. No, it is.
Thank you. Do we need to go through reasons and grounds, anybody? Or are we pretty much? Well, I want to make sure with no one, that we're pretty clear on the reasons and grounds. Everyone's set?
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, go.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to deny the request for 1331 Pannell Street Northwest by applicant owner Ron Cordes for dimensional variance from section 6.10 of the zoning ordinance to permit a minimum line of 12 acres in size when the minimum size for a minimum line is established by that section is 20 acres, and to permit a minimum line deny because we don't want to permit a minimum line to have a rear setback from residential use of 75 feet when the minimum setback is 500 in the ordinance on all three sides, on three sides of the property. Under category A, there are not exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to this property. Under category C, the authorizing such variance will be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will materially impair the intent and purposes of the chapter of this and the public interest.
Okay, it's a motion by Tom, second by Jeff. Okay.
Second the motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, who was opposed? Just Randy and Greg? Okay. Okay, the motion is denied for the variance of the.
The motion is approved, the variance is
Yeah,
approved.
yeah. All right, screw that up.
Can I make a motion that we adjourn?
Support.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure, he's the chairman.
It's nice seeing you again, Tom. It's been a while.
It's good seeing you, yeah. Well, last time the notice came out late, I already had planned my month. I
I know you're busy.
couldn't move it.
The mayor said one time, he goes, he is so busy, he's got so many things going, and
Yeah.
between the state commission and your job and stuff.
Job, travel a lot.
Yeah.
So glad to be here tonight, though. So.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
I mean, Randy and Greg have good points. I mean, it's a shit property. What are you going to do with it? I don't know, but we're so far away from a provable minimum line. I just don't think.
I struggled. I went out and I sat for an hour and I sat up in the houses
Sorry to interrupt, Brian, can you quickly sign both of these for me? You can use my pen,
Yeah, it's
and then I'll go.
And Gary Carey about issues and never got phone call.
What's the issue?
Can I call you sometime?
How did I say that wrong?
No, you were right on, but I just wanted to clarify, because it
Okay.
wasn't super.
And this